Everyone loves to make his or her own choices. Getting the opportunity to choose what we want increases the chances that we are interested in what we are doing or learning. Students do not always get to make choices in the classroom. Curriculum plans demand that teachers teach a certain way or about a certain topic. Students have to follow along even when they are not interested. One key to getting students engaged in learning is to pique their interest by offering choices. When students are engaged in something that interests them, they are more active in the learning process. On a choices board, students choose some activities that are academically appropriate for them and others that challenge them. On choices boards, there are activities for all ability groups. In this segment, I am working with a language arts teacher. We are creating a choices board for her students. After we complete the choices board, she explains it to the class. Then she introduces the grading rubric so that all students know how they will be evaluated. Students choose their assignments based on the shapes given to them by the teacher. After completing their chosen assignments, students fill out self-assessments about the work they just completed. The teacher will use these self-assessments and her own observations of the products to assign grades to the final work.
So as a department head, when I'm bringing differentiated strategies to my department, we've had some questions come up about the actual implementation of the choices board in particular. When you have such a large board, you're trying to come up with 16 different activities on a given day, or for even a given at the end of a unit, that's a lot of activities to come up with. Do you have any suggestions for us on how to make that a more manageable task?
Well, one way to make it a little more manageable is actually to take away, maybe instead of doing 16, do 9. Take away a column on one side and a row across the bottom. And that decreases it only down to 9. You still have a good selection of choices that students can choose from, but it's not overwhelming for your teachers to have to actually plan that much.
16 different. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do you actually come up with the activities to fill up the board?
When I authored this differentiation notebook, I found a great multiple intelligence product grid. And as you can see, it's right here in the notebook. We have the verbal linguistic, and then we have just a whole list of different ideas, from comic strips to diaries to giving a jingle or a joke book. And then we have visual spatial activities like doing a collage, creating costumes, games, all the way over to interpersonal. And this is where students are doing journals and they're thinking inwardly. I usually use something like this to come up with all my ideas, especially since we're going to be doing something on figurative language. Mm-hmm. This is a perfect way to come up with different products that students can create, and it's something that they're going to really match to learning styles and their interests as well.
Great. So with all these different activities, how do I figure out which activity goes at which level or with which symbol?
That's a really great question. You know your students best in your classroom. What I like to do is I start with my on grade level student, that's the square activities. And I think about what can this student do in my class. And so I try to come up with something from maybe a verbal linguistic to put in one of my squares, something bodily kinesthetic to put in another one, and maybe a naturalist to put in another one. And I think about what my on grade level student can do. Then when I want to level an activity, I narrow something down, and that would be for my below grade level students, the circle students on there. If I want to make it more complex, I open it up and make it more difficult, add more breadth in there if I can, and that's my above grade level students, my triangle symbol.
Okay, so we have our choices board.
Mm-hmm.
We figured out when to carve out the time and what's going to go on it. Once the students are finished with their products, how do we go back and assess their products?
Using a matrix rubric, and I actually created this one because I knew we were going to be talking about this. On a rubric, what you would do is you can start with different levels. Always in the first column, I like to put what I want the students to achieve. So I do it at 4 different levels so students know exactly how I'm going to grade them. And be sure to show this to them before they actually start on their project so they know ahead of time what you're looking for and what you're expecting from them.
Good morning. We've been talking a lot lately about figurative language, and we're going to be reviewing that today and doing some activities. When we talk about figurative language, it's the language of comparisons. When you're comparing one or more things, we've talked about similes, we've talked about metaphors, personification, all of our different terms. We're going to review a few of those today, and then you're going to be choosing activities as your assessment piece to show me what you know about figurative language. Another piece of figurative language is a personification. And who can tell me a personification?
A personification is when you give a non-living thing human characteristics. An example would be the wind was dancing with the grass.
That's a beautiful example. What we're going to be doing today is a choices board with different activities for the figurative language that we've covered this year. I'm going to be coming around and giving you guys different symbols, and you get to choose. This is the fun part about this project. You get to choose your favorite project, and just to mix it up, everyone's going to have some different symbols. I'm going to give you 2 symbols. I want you to, once you get your symbol, be looking over the board at all your different choices. In fact, you can even begin looking over the board before I give you your symbol and see what's available to you and start picking out some of your favorites. You will take one and pass it down the row for me. Will you pass this behind you, please? As you're getting the choices board, just begin reading through. Read all of the options, get a feel for what's on the board, what choices you'll have.
I guess that's it.
Yeah. So do that one.
Yeah, it's either this one or like the crossword puzzle one.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty good choice. So which one? I prefer this one.
Yeah, that one looks more fun.
Simple and fun.
So I'm going to begin calling a couple of you guys up in pairs to talk about the different choices. Now that you have your symbols, I want you to look at the board and we're going to talk together about which option that you're selecting. Can I please have Jessica and Steve come up and we'll talk about your options. The rest of you guys, if you will look over your choices on the sheet and be thinking about your selections. Okay, so all of your stars here, you can choose. You're going to do one of these by yourself. Let's look at our options. We have Create a Picture Dictionary in your flashcards. And for this activity, you get to select individually. Now, as far as the one that you're going to do together, we have all of our square options here. I want you guys to kind of talk about those. Let's look at what we have and then decide together which one you want to work on. So come a little bit closer to the board. Let's look at our options and what do we think? Look at all of our square options. A radio advertisement. We have a short story about homework machine. The one scene from a play you get to create, and then also a crossword puzzle.
We're going to create the crossword puzzle.
You're going to create the crossword puzzle together. That sounds great. Okay. You may have a seat and begin working on that. Okay. And the next pair I want to come up and choose your options is Diana and Ashley. Okay, your symbols are the square and the triangle. The square activity you're going to be working on individually, and the triangle activity you're going to be working on together.
The letter.
The letter, writing a letter to a friend. Diana, does that seem good to you? Using 5 different kinds of figurative language. Can you think of 5 types of figurative language? What do you think we're going to do?
Idiom, simile, metaphor, paradox, oxymoron.
Sounds great. Sounds like a plan. Okay, ladies, you can have a seat and begin working. Now what I want you to do, take out this sheet that says Figurative Language Choices Board Rubric. Take out your rubric. As you know, this is a scoring guide. This is what we look to know what do I need to do in order to get the best grade. How am I going to be scored for this? So let's look at the different criteria. We have 4 rows: detail, use of figurative language, imaginative, and mechanics or writing, use of words. So these are the different categories that we're going to be assessed by. We want to look at the level 4 because that's the highest grade that you can be assessed, correct? We don't want to look at the lower one. So we're going to shoot for the first column, the level 4. The first one for details says the product gives details that bring figurative language to life. So you're going to want to have lots of details to bring your product to life. Okay guys, I'm so impressed with what you've done. Lots and lots of good products I see. What I want to do now is give out your Choices Board assessment form. You're going to be assigning yourself a grade, and then I'm going to be assigning you a grade. And they're going to want to be near each other, right? You don't want to give yourself 100 and I give you a 70. You want to try to think like a teacher here. Did I do everything that's on my rubric? Remember, like we did with the Holocaust folders, you gave yourself a folder assessment grade, and then I gave you a folder assessment grade, and we made sure that they were close together, okay? I'm going to be passing these out now, and I want you to read through each of the elements.
Choices boards allow teachers to act as facilitators of the learning rather than directors. The students decide what they want to do and then work independently or in pairs to complete their assignments. Well-designed choices boards allow students to share what they have learned throughout a unit of study in a creative, fun way.